Both you and your Democratic opponent proposed to cut state spending. You also proposed repealing those tax hikes done in the Doyle years, I think. Compare and contrast Barrett's plan to cut the state budget and balance the budget with your own, with as many specifics as you can. And what of the charge that your plan for tax cuts would leave vital services, including education, underfunded?
Well, it's just a bogus political claim. I mean, there's no substance to it. We have talked about the problems with the tax cuts on major employers, the problems with the tax increases that Doyle's passed in the past, that the legislature and the governor passed, pointed out as a problem, but I have not introduced a plan. We've talked about a lot of plans, but I haven't introduced a plan about the timing or the amount or what impact that would mean on other services. My plan that we'll be coming out with shortly between now and the fall election about taxes specifically, we'll talk about tax cuts for everyone, not just repealing cuts. To me, it's set aside the repeal and say we need to cut taxes for everyone. Employers, individuals, help cap off property taxes, even phase out state taxes and retirement income. We've talked about the problem with those taxes and said at some point along the way we'd like to do that, but the larger issue is about tax cuts. And actually, if you look at states around the country that have brought on tax cuts as well as part of a larger economic package in the last couple of years, are the states that actually have seen economic growth, more jobs, and in turn, in most cases, a better budget climate in terms of their state budgets than even Wisconsin, where we're at right now. So that has actually helped them because as more people are working, even though they're paying lower taxes, the more of them working actually brings more revenue into the state treasury, and that's what we'd anticipate here. In terms of our priorities, we still looked at making sure that public safety, public health, education in the state will be priorities. And in fact, I laid it out again the other night at the statewide debate we're part of. Unfortunately, Tom Barrett has decided to go from Mr. Nice to Mr. Nasty in a matter of just about a month. Because I don't hear anything these days, or very little, about what he's going to do. All I hear about are attacks about us. Standing, even the other night, standing on the outside of the debate he was invited to attend, throwing rocks in an issue, but not willing to defend his own record and defend his own policies.
How do you cut taxes across the board and not underfund services?
I believe in a 2-year budget cycle. I will believe there will be enough revenue growth through not just the tax cuts, but the other changes we're going to make to regulations, easing the regulatory burden, easing the litigation burden, making improvements in helping when it comes to lower health care costs, and making improvements in terms of our infrastructure system in the state. I believe those are things that will materialize not only within the first 2 years, but probably within the first year. That will increase the number of people who will work in the state, and in turn revenues will increase from that. But I think you have to have a parallel track. You need to do both that, and you need to have spending restraint. It's why when we talk about that change where right now a handful of state workers pay for the employee contribution to the pension system. Under my budget, everybody will, myself included. In fact, I'll start making the payment on January 3rd, just like I started making my own payments back to the taxpayers here years ago when the county executive was making more than the governor. It's the number people kick around, the $370,000 we gave back, but that was saying we're going to lead, we need to lead forcefully. The same way is true with that pension contribution. That combined with the 4,000 positions I talked about earlier would save about $1 billion right off the top. The other changes we can make in improving our health care plans in terms of $300 million alone per year we're talking about in terms of our bipartisan commission looking at waste, in terms of changes with what we provide in terms of health care options for local governments. All those are things that we laid out piece by piece. And people say, why didn't you put a big plan out? Well, the reason we didn't put a big plan out at once is I only put out things I plan on doing. Tom Barrett's got a 67-page plan, but one of the things I included in your packet is an item here, second page in, where he put out a big plan when he was running for mayor. He said, here are the things I'm going to do for your mayor. A whole section was about cleaning up the sewage district. In fact, it says specifically the goal, clean water. Third point down is no raw sewage dumping. Now, when I talked to your editorial board after the editorial, who kind of just took a shot at me at that and said, oh, that's not fair. I said, what is not fair about that? He did this. He actually ran on the first page. That's the commercial. That's the text of the commercial he used to attack Marvin Pratt. He said, I will stop the sewage dumping. Now, isn't it fair to ask after more than 60 days in office why Marvin Pratt hasn't even started to get these things done? He didn't say he'd try. He didn't say he'd think about it. He didn't say he'd work about it. I mean, the simple fact is, I mentioned there are things at the county, things that are broken that we've said we take accountability for and are going to correct. We've done it in the past. We'll continue it in the future. Tom Barrett can't tell me when you appoint 7 of 11 commissioners that you don't run the sewage district. If we all formed a company and said, okay, here's our board of directors, I appoint 7 of the 11 of you, I run the company. It is my company. I own the company. What I say goes for the company if I control 7 of the 11 commissioners. He owns the sewage district. Point blank. He owns it. He runs it. It is his responsibility. Now, if he had said at the time, well, I'll try and work on it or I'll try and reduce it, but he attacked Marvin Pratt for having done nothing when he said he'd stop it. That, to me, is a bold pledge saying, this is what I'll do. Now, the other interesting thing while we're on it is that if you look 4 pages back, because then his retort was, well, Walker hasn't proposed a plan. He's just throwing rocks. Well, that aside, I didn't run on the campaign pledge that I'd fix the sewage district. You could attack me if I retreated on my pledge not to raise the property tax levy. You may agree with it, but you could attack me on the integrity of saying he backed off from his pledge. Barrett said he would no longer have dumping raw sewage. So then he attacks me. If you look inside there, the Daily Reporter, 4 pages in, it says, Scott Walker suggesting the Metropolitan Sewerage District separate its combined sewers in an effort, so on and so forth. It talks about a plan. This week in a letter sent to the commissioners, he recommended steps to prevent future dumps, throwing his hat into the public discussion stirred up. This is in July of 2004, right after he made his promise. Then the commissioner, or the information manager for MMSD said, I would have to applaud the county executive for at least offering some solutions. There have been very few people offering solutions to fix the problems. Then, the best part is, Patrick Curley, Barrett's chief of staff, said the MSD audit committee, which was already considering separations and downspout disconnections, would add Walker's recommendations to the discussion. Last quote was, we need to proceed with some good deliberations and good pros and cons of sewer separation, Curley said. We appreciate County Executive Walker's interest in finding solutions. Their whole attack is I haven't provided solutions. I provided a plan. I didn't have anything to do with it, other than the fact that I live in a community that's obviously treated ill by the fact that the sewage is being dumped into our waterways and backed up in our homes and things of that nature. But again, to me, it goes to the larger issue, and I brought this up statewide when I raised it out there. Even if you live in Wausau or somewhere else where you maybe don't care all that much about how much sewage is being dumped in the lake, although I would argue people across the state should care about that. The simple fact is he's running around talking about a big plan he's got and how wonderful it is that he's the candidate of substance. The reality is I only make promises I plan on keeping. That's why I lay them out one at a time, so I'm not making things I say I'm going to do and not doing. You may say it was simple, but back when I first ran, I handed out 500,000 cards that said, here are the things I'll do as county executive. I put check boxes next to each and every one of them. And then I actually boldly challenged people to put it up on your refrigerator and hold me accountable. The paper, I remember the first month I was in office, every Sunday in the Crossroads section, ran a copy of that card challenging me to see if I was going to make them all. I did. Now, again, you don't have to agree with them all, but that's the difference. To me, part of deciding who's going to be a leader in a time of crisis isn't just saying, do I like everything him or he or she, I should say, says, but also do I believe they have the credibility to fill those promises once they're in office.